Well, good morning. Here we are, and it's Thursday, the 28th day of July in the year 2022. You're watching Mirador Television, and for the next couple of hours or so, we're going to be rabbiting on about this and about that, and getting Andy's into a twist, just the way that everybody is in Westminster and elsewhere about almost everything. So stay with us and get your knickers into a twist along with us. If not, yell and scream and say, "Get off, get off." He said, "Why not? Why not indeed?" I'm Keith Hayes, and welcome to Mirador Television Break an Egg, which is broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, right in the centre of the town. This is Lewes, UK, and not Lewes, Delaware, although we have a very strong relationship with Lewes, Delaware. And I hope that anybody who is tuning in and finds us instead of Lewes, Delaware, feels welcome and can stay with us or even make a comment if they wish. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on all sorts of social media. So please try to find us and see if you enjoy us. Excuse me while I finish my biscuit. I cannot start the day unless I've had my coffee and my biscuit. I didn't quite get a chance to finish my biscuit, so I'll do it now. Okay. We traditionally start off this program by looking at the newspapers, and we will not break with tradition. We will start off with the gloom and the doom of what's going on around us. The gloom and the doom brought on by our leadership. The gloom and the doom brought on by factors that nature has decided should be stacked up against us, and for which we have really no answer. Although it's our abuse that quite often has caused these things. The newspaper headlines, first of all, is the Eye newspaper starts off with UK general strike threat if Truss takes on the unions. Now, in the debates that have been taking place between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, I don't know why I always have trouble with that name. There we are. It has been raised that the unions still have far too much power and are capable of bringing the country to a halt, as indeed they did yesterday. Although I have to say that I personally didn't feel too much of it, and I haven't bumped into anybody yet who did. So perhaps what we may be calling into question is whether, in fact, strike action is now the way to go for the unions, or whether they've got to find some other way to bring, as they say, pay and conditions in line for their workers whenever they're taking on the government, or for that matter, whenever they're taking on management. But management is not terribly tough nowadays, I'm afraid. Little bit of biscuit left. But do the unions have to change tactics? Looking at it in a very surface way, I'm not privy to the real workings of the unions or the real workings of the unions in Westminster. But I would say that perhaps the day of the general strike has run its course. But that's what they're threatening. Mr. Mick Lynch, and the RMT union are saying we're going to call a general strike, have everybody out. If Liz Truss, and they particularly target Liz Truss because she's still the front runner to take over from Boris. If Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister, then she's got a fight on her hands. So that's the first threat to her primacy if she wins. But as they say, a day is a long time in the life of politics. Anything can change for a whole variety of reasons. So nobody should be counting chickens just yet. The Guardian follows on with the same theme. Unions issue a general strike threat as the rail crisis grows. It says Mick Lynch's threat, combined with strikes this week and planned action by other unions, looks set to deepen a summer of industrial unrest. It also reports that senior shadow ministers have expressed private concern about Labour's current policy of not allowing front benchers to join picket lines, arguing it could become unsustainable. Well, I mean, that's a fight within the Labour Party, and it can decide what it wants and what it shouldn't, what seems proper and what doesn't. But the fact of the matter is industrial unrest. First of all, how many people are back at work? If you call a strike ballot now, they'd all have to come in for the day. And we still have an awful lot of government and non-government organisations where they are encouraging people to have 1 day on and 4 days off. Work from home. But in fact, yesterday, there was an expert was bemoaning the fact that the country is at a standstill. You can't get hold of anybody. Nothing is really functioning properly. And why? Because nobody is at work. And that's probably why the rail strike had little impact yesterday, because all sorts of people say, well, I work from home. Blow you. Some people can't. Hospitals, for instance. Utilities. Although I'm not so sure about the utilities. Because my favorite bugaboo is that everybody in every aspect of our lives now depends upon computers, and computers weren't meant to be depended upon. Computers go wrong, as indeed they have over the last few days for a whole lot of people. Computers were meant to serve us, to be used to the betterment of governance and industry and charity and utilities, for that matter, the hospitals. But we have opted to let the computers do the work for us. And as a consequence, they cannot be as versatile or react to given situations as humans can. So what's happening is that the computers are getting us in one hell of a mess. One hell of a mess. Demands for attention to various things, such as accounts, bank accounts, etc., they go unheeded because the computer gets it wrong. Even I had a real altercation with O2. Phone this number, they said, but I can't. I'm cut off. There's no option. No option at all. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. Perhaps we've got a bunch of crazy people in charge. I'm beginning to think we have, actually. Perhaps it is time for a wholesale sweep out of absolutely everybody in the establishment. I watched the BBC, and I commend it for its diversity. It's got black people, it's got women, it's got gay people, it's got all sorts of people on screen, on air. And that is right and proper. The trouble is that they're there because they are women, they are gay, or they are black, instead of being there because they know how to do the job and they just happen to be any one of those things. Now that's a big, big difference. I hope like hell the airlines don't go the same thing, because I don't want a guy in the cockpit up front who is there because he is a ratio. He's part of a minority. I want him there because he knows how to fly the damn plane. And I want that in the same for television, and I want it for utilities, and I want it for charities, and I want it for hospitals, and that's my criteria. I've been criticised for that. You can't have people who know what they're doing as a reason to give them the job. And actually, there is some caution to that. There's some truth to that. You don't want a nasty little worker who's going to stir things up all the time, not actually do the work, even though he's qualified for it. Yes, I understand that. But trying to run something efficiently on people who are there for reasons other than they know what they're doing or they're good at what they do is a totally different thing. That's the rant this morning, right? The Metro, the driest July since 1911, right? We haven't had such a dry July since, since 1911, which is what, 21 years ago? No, it's 121 years ago. Wow. I thought that I remembered days in the 1940s, 1950s when I was at school, when summers seemed to be endless and full of sun. But then that's just memory, isn't it? It's just memory. And it wasn't like that at all. It rained like hell. The famous British picnic at the seaside was cucumber sandwiches with sand getting in between the vegetable, the butter, and the bread. And we were stoic and decided that we were enjoying ourselves because that's what we were eating. Crunch, crunch, crunch. A bit of sand on a cucumber slice. Right. Right. So the driest July since 1911. The Star, my wonderful, wonderful Star. Grease is the word. Is don't wash your hair. And then it says, you mucky lot. Take a shower for only 5 minutes. Well, I only take 5 minutes in the shower anyway. And use the same teacup throughout the day without washing it. So grease is the word, is a headline. And that's what it comes up with, ideas to save water. But I remember a few years ago, more than a few years ago, I suppose, but I think is the very best campaign that I ever saw concerning water, and that is take a shower with a friend. And that to me is by far the most sensible solution. And it's also a very catchy campaign. Take a shower with a friend. I'm scouring my notebooks to see whether I've got any friends left. Don't count the ones on Facebook. Most of those aren't friends at all. It says they're friends, and what they do is they abuse you. The Daily Express. That fears that energy bills will hit a shocking £3,850 a year. And that is indeed of great concern. Energy bills are just going out of the window. And of course, part of that is because of the war in Ukraine and Russia's capability of limiting gas supplies. And that is always, as I said at the very beginning, when we decided that we would not pick up arms, we would not go to war with Ukraine against the Russians, but what we would do is we would impose sanctions. And I said at the time, the people who impose sanctions are normally the people that suffer most, not the people against whom sanctions have been imposed. And so it's turning out to be. The Mirror. Shocking, it says. Energy bills could hit £500 for 1 month this winter. Well, that actually makes it 6,000, not 3,800. It makes it 6,000 for the average family. Whoa, whoa, wow. The Financial Times. And this is where a lot of people don't appreciate some of the things that are happening that don't make proper headlines. The Financial Times is the Fed lifts rates by 0.75 points for a second month in a row. Now, that's quite a large leap for any central bank. And what it means is that the world's biggest economy the central bank there is increasing its charge, the cost of borrowing money by 0.25% or 0.75 percentage point. And that means money becomes more expensive, and that's supposed to help cap inflation. Indeed, it does. But what it does is it makes things much more expensive. So the warning that was given yesterday by some of the major companies, including people like Coca-Cola and McDonald's hamburgers and so on and so forth, not the backroom boys by any means, that prices are going to rise because their cost is rising, is going to be even more key. So not a very happy situation, not happy at all. Let's see, the Daily Mail is victory for free speech and women. It takes a different tack this morning, and it says that a barrister, a court legal chamber, discriminated against a barrister, Alison Bailey, and she expressed a belief that biological sex could not be changed, and they sacked her. So she went to the industrial tribunal, and the industrial tribunal has upheld her, not the chambers. And the Mail says that this is free speech hitting back at the wokes who keep on telling us what we should think, what we should believe, what we should say, and being quite militant when we won't follow their example or follow the pattern that they want to set. So there we are, as a case in point where common sense has prevailed. It doesn't matter what you believe, whether you believe what this lady said or not. The important thing is she has the right to say it. That's the issue, the right to say it. And we are being told more and more and more by small segments of our society how we should think, how we should write, how we should sing, how we should do this, how we should do that, how we should behave, and it is not on. Rule of law, yes. Rule of woke beliefs, no. Very much a no. And just in case somebody wants to come and slit my throat, we're broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in the heart of Lewis. But believe me, you are very welcome to come in off the street and sit down and have your say on television, whatever that may be. But that is one of the freedoms that we can offer. Not you must believe in what the paraders, the marchers try to force us to believe. We all have a mind, and it's important that we actually use that mind to the benefit of mankind and the benefit of our lifestyle, the way that we go. Well, what's the time, by the way? Oh, it's 8:54. Wow, we're coming up to the first half hour of the program. That's quite incredible. Yes, we've been on the air for 20 minutes. The Times, talk to our enemies or run at risk of nuclear war. Now, this is the most frightening, probably, of the stories around concerning war this morning, because a national security advisor, Sir Stephen Lovegrove, has warned that because everything seems to be getting in the way of rational thinking, that doors that were previously open with China and Russia and some of the other rogue states even about the use of nuclear weapons are slowly being closed, mainly because they are being disused as the major powers start to gaze into their navels and worry about what the hell's happening on the high street. And so they should worry about what's happening on the high street. But to the cost of the chit-chat, of the unheard of dialogue between nations that actually keeps us in a sane and sensible world. And he says that's being lost. So watch out. The Daily Telegraph, accidental nuclear war with China, a growing risk. The same story. So some people are taking it seriously. And indeed, we had on our we had on our program last Friday Melissa Conte from New York, our regular correspondent, who gave the same warning. And she said the Americans do not understand why we are asleep at the switch when it comes to China. That we have focused our attention on Ukraine and Russia. The Chinese are indeed a worry, are indeed a threat, and one which we should be worried about. So, the Daily Telegraph, accidental nuclear war with China is a growing risk. The Sun, which as usual avoids anything controversial. I'm not quite sure why. I find this a puzzle. But he's got a footballing story. Tuchel, who's at Chelsea, Chelsea boss, is after some Brazilian footballer. And did he do it properly or did he not do it properly? I mean, who cares? To be quite honest with you. And that is the last of the major newspapers. So there we have what's happening in your day and in your lives and the things that are likely to impact on you one way or another, either now or in the future. What I can tell you is one thing that's going to impact on you is that we are in this town, in this country, heading towards another 23-degree day. We are going to have plenty of sunshine, some overcast periods. A few clouds will gather here and there, but generally speaking, it's going to be fine and dry with a modest breeze. Now, I'm always a bit worried about the modest breeze because with this sort of hat, is those modest breezes have managed to catch the hat and send it tumbling down the high street. And I'm getting just a bit too old to chase it, at least with any vigor. So I depend upon people who can see what's happening and laughing like hell, catching their hat and returning it to me. So watch out for those breezes. But other than that, not unpleasant summer days. Not unpleasant at all. It looks as if it's going to last for another, possibly up to a week, which would be rather nice. At least we would be able to say we had a summer. And boy, did we have a sizzling summer for a week. But it doesn't look, despite the Daily Star's predictions, it doesn't look as if we're going to have Saharan weather again. But watch my lips. You never can tell. You never can tell what sort of weather we're going to have. Those are the headlines of what's out there today as you tumble out of bed and as you start to go to work or about your daily routine or whatever. Not bad. The back pages. Some good news, but the old football starts to creep back in again, and that's always so complicated and so on that it gets silly. I mean, the other day, one newspaper had 7 pages on football, and it's sports pages. Now, who the hell is going to read 7 pages on football? But even if you only read about your own team, that's a page and a half. In a society that is rapidly unlearning, if you like, how to read, is why are they spending all that time and effort and money to jam their pages with that sort of stuff? Anyway, it is football that is keeping the mind alert. And I suppose in many ways it is a happy situation because it's all surrounding the ladies' team, the Lionesses, as they're called, as they prepare for the final this coming weekend between themselves. And it appears Germany beat France last night 2-1. So against Germany in the final. And a lot of excitement because our team has performed particularly well. Can it go the final 90 minutes? Can it bring home the cup? Well, who knows? It's nice to think that it will. They can. But at least they've given it a good college try. And roaring for the Lionesses has become the byword for people. Roar, roar, roar. Why not? Okie dokie dokie. Let's take a brief pause and go down to our favourite park, which I call really is our Potter's Wheel. Well, that is when I say that's our Potter's Wheel, we go to that park several times during the program because it is nice and calming, and it's a wonderful park, and it's got a great history. We use it as a little interlude, particularly if our mouths have got dry, or if we're drying up with things to say, or we think that you need a little break from us ranting and raving. The Potter's Wheel was a classic interlude segment of a piece of clay being molded into a vase or a jug or something of the sort that the BBC used in the very early days of television, way back in the 1950s. Because in those days, programs weren't cut to 22.x minutes or 50, 53, 54 minutes. They were all over the place. So they joined their programs because there are no commercials. They joined their programs with things. London to Brighton, for instance, on the train in 4 minutes. That was a great favourite. The Potter's Wheel was particularly appropriate, and we all stared and watched this lump of clay being fashioned into a pot, the Potter's Wheel. Why not? It is now 3 minutes past 9, and I sort of like little bits and pieces here and there. And here's one that I've been playing quite regularly recently, and I hope that you enjoy it because it's only a minute or 2 minutes long or something. But it's one of our ghosty things. It's on the way.
Mickleham Priory is near Lewes. It was a former Augustine 13th century monastery. The main building has been preserved, but the church was pulled down by Henry VIII. The monks there had a reputation for naughtiness. Ghostly figures of monks are often seen walking the grounds. Stories of orgies and chasing the girls in the local village were legion. The priory became a private residence. One of its occupants was Sir Thomas Sackville, who lived there in the late 1500s. He was, by all accounts, a nasty bit of work. His ghost is said to bully the other spirits, as well as unsuspecting mortals. It must be true, I felt him kick me.
Well, not only did it kick me, it pinched my bottom, and Sackville was notorious for tweaking the bottoms of the wenches that worked for him around the staff. They all had to try and avoid him. Pretty difficult when he's the boss. But that followed on from the tradition of the monks, who did much the same, try to have their way with the local girls in Upper Dicker. A nice little village, actually, Upper Dicker. And where Mickleham Priory to this day stands in very, very good condition, and it's very worthwhile, really worthwhile having a visit. I'm just trying to clear the decks here for just so that we don't have a clutter of things that can make it all go wrong quite often. Coming up next week, the return of the very popular program with Sarah Fitch Hayes, our resident artist, as it were, back with her very bubbly and different approach to art. And with good news, she showed a painting of well, actually, I think it was a Coke bottle. Although she did show a painting of Marmite, but she did a classic Coke bottle, which has been bought by, I think she said it was a Brazilian, and that it is now on his wall in his house in Brazil, and in all its glory. And it's one of her paintings, and he bought it, and he is interested in taking another commission. So she's doing quite well, but she's got a wonderful, refreshing, different approach to art. And we talked at length about it, about what she's doing, what she plans to do, and actually she is very anxious to get around the United Kingdom, as she says, from Blackpool to Falmouth, and there are so many things that can tempt and trigger her artistic skills. While in fact she because at her level, and she's quite young, is making a living as an artist is not an easy thing. So you need to do other things, which she does. But boy, does she fill her days with exciting stuff, and stuff which you'll want to know about, and you'll want to know about it because she's a very, very buoyant lady, a very buoyant lady indeed. So 9:08 we are at. We hope that Jane Watkins will join us this morning from Gordonston in Scotland. Jane is normally our correspondent from Hastings, but she is this week teaching. Well, she's up there for a month in Scotland teaching a summer school, and she's at Gordonston, and that was Prince Charles School. She gives us her little taste, particularly of porridge, and they do get to eat haggis at some stage as well. But anyway, she is there teaching and having quite a good time by the sound of things. But we hope that she'll join us and bring us up to date what's happening in Gordonston, but also her view on what's happening in the rest of the country. So those are the things which we have got for you floating around this morning. Now, one of the things that we are doing is we're delving back into our video file, and we are looking at some old programs that we did, and we did some interesting ones, I think. And here is one that it features me, but you might find it just a little bit interesting because it's me and me being in the Canadian wilds, and how I dealt with the bears that wander around. So let's see if this works, and enjoy
18 when I set off for Canada. It was a long way to go. It goes on 5,000 to 6,000 miles, all on my own, and a real adventure. And the first year was pretty good. I spent the 2 semesters as required at the university, and then I got a job for the summer. And I went out into the Rocky Mountains between 2 small communities, at least in those days they were small communities, called Revelstoke and Golden. Wild, it was wild. And my job was to help build the Trans-Canada Highway between those 2 points, because there was no road there. The only way in was by rail, a train that had been built many, many years, almost a century before. Well, not the train itself, but the tracks. And I remember on that first journey, getting off the train at a place called Stony Creek. I thought I was at the ends of the earth. It was raining. There was mud and streams flowing down the mountainside. There was nobody there. And there I stood beside the track, watching my safe train, which only came once a week, disappear into the mountainside. You've no idea how you feel that first few days. But it was very fortuitous, because I learned a number of things in that space of 2 or 3 months that I worked in the Rocky Mountains. I still got an English haircut. On the odd occasion, I wore my school blazer with the mitre on. It's English. I was English in a Canadian setting. And boy, didn't they know it. And I would go into the bunkhouse, and on one occasion, I reached for the gravy jug, and because the chap had a very heavy accent who was sitting opposite to me and said, "That's not gravy," I didn't understand. So I smiled at him and poured the gravy all over this wonderful meal, to find out that it was chocolate sauce. Chocolate sauce sitting on the table when in fact you've got potatoes and meat in front of you. Oh, that was a learning curve. And the same chap said a little later, he said to one of his companions, "You sure can tell that young fellow is English, can't you?" And I thought, "Well, yeah, I suppose you can." And he said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because he eats his pie with a spoon." Canadians always eat with a fork. What a giveaway. Never mind the blazer, never mind the haircut. But it was that summer that my actual athletic prowess really came out, because I broke the half-mile record and the high jump record within minutes of each other. And I also, not sure it's a record, but did pretty well in the weightlifting department. That was a few days later. But first of all, it's the half-mile record. When you go to work in these camps, there's not much to do. You work, you sleep, you eat, and after a month or two, you get out and you pick up your check. Very nice it is too. But on a Sunday, no television, no limited books, no newspapers. They would probably come midweek. So you just hung around, and it was very boring. Understanding that and needing work done, the camp bosses would say, "Would you like to earn some more money?" As a university student, wow, would I like to earn some more money? And you got time and a half for working on a Sunday. It's rather nice. So this particular Sunday, I was deputed to go up the mountainside and to start digging little potholes to see whether we could hit gravel, stones that they could use to lay on the bed of the road which we were building. So off I trotted, hey-ho, shovel slung over my shoulder, clambered up the mountainside, found a suitable place to start to dig holes, and started to dig away. After a little while, I heard some stones being loosened up on the railway track. I paid no attention at all, because there was a railway gang that lived, yes, they stayed up in a little hut on the railway site. And they, like us, had nothing to do on a Sunday, so they would earn some extra money going out, testing the track, and that sort of thing. That's who I thought it was. I continued to merrily dig away at my hole, hoping that I would hit gravel pretty soon, because it's back-breaking work. And then I looked up to see a huge grizzly bear coming down the mountainside, his beady eyes fixed on me. I hadn't had lunch yet. He was determined to have his lunch, and I was it. I threw the spade down, and I took off down the mountainside. Now I was dressed in work clothes. I had big work boots on. They came way up past my ankles. They got thick soles. They were leather. They were toe-capped with hard stuff, so that if you dropped anything on them, you wouldn't crush your feet. And I took off down the mountainside at a great rate of knots. The spring runoff was still there. Water was still cascading down the mountain. So the mud must have been good 2 or 3 feet deep at some stages. I managed to avoid disappearing into the mud altogether. But at the side of the track, down the mountain I went, lickety-split, determined that this grizzly was not going to have me for lunch that particular day. I came round a bend in the track, and there was a D9 Caterpillar tractor. Now, if you've never been on a construction site and you've never seen a D9 Caterpillar tractor, they are huge. They are huge. And they stand about a story and a half. So if you look at a small house and try to guess that you're looking at just below the bedroom window, that's about the height, 7, 8 feet. The driver said that I did not touch his vehicle. I did not touch the bulldozer in leaping into the seat beside him and clutching him, trembling with fear that this grizzly was going to come around and find that the D9 Caterpillar tractor was no obstacle whatsoever, and he would have double lunch. He'd have both of us. The old Caterpillar driver, the tractor driver, of course, had been around for a long time, and he was killing himself with laughter that I'd come down the mountainside at such a rate. But he swore that I did not touch his vehicle, that I leapt from the ground and I got into the seat beside him. So I'd done 7 feet, and even in those days, the high jump record was only about 6 feet something. So there I had set one record, but I previously set the record for the half mile, because it had been about half a mile that I'd raced down the mountain to get out of the way of the grizzly who wasn't stopping. He was coming after me. and he was determined, as grizzly bears can be, to have me as a meal. So in talking to the driver later and figuring out at what time I actually saw the grizzly, to what time I reached his tractor, we figured that I beat the half-mile record by a good 5 or 6 seconds. So two records in one afternoon. And believe me, when the adrenaline gets going, it's amazing how it pumps you. It's amazing that you can do all sorts of things which you wouldn't do ordinarily. And it was a grizzly that helped me achieve this marvelous record-breaking feat. And afterwards, I felt quite good about it, except, apart from the driver, there was nobody to confirm what I'd done. So I never, ever got a gold medal, a silver medal, or a bronze medal for breaking this record. All I got was a giggle from the driver, and perhaps a little self-satisfaction of knowing that I had been as speedy as I had, even though I was driven by a grizzly bear. And if you say, oh, what was it, a grizzly bear? Yeah, you can tell a grizzly. It's not only his size, but a grizzly, unlike any other bear, has a hump just behind his head. So it is easy to identify. Later on, I learned that black bears you can frighten off a little. The only time to worry about a black bear is if it's got its young with them. It is very protective of its cubs, or if it's ill, in which case it will pay no notice. But I later on managed to control black bears and brown bears with very little problem, bravely waving my hands. But this was my first experience in the wild with a wild animal who was ready to be feral. He wasn't going to take a polite young Englishman who said, "I'm terribly sorry to disturb you." Seriously, he wanted me. A few days later, I was working around the camp when the foreman came and said, "Keith, go with Joe over there, take this pump and take it up about 100 yards above the camp."
That seems to have frozen at a very particular point. But I will bring you the rest of that story at some stage once we've made sure that the video is going to roll. And it did for 3/4 of the story, and then seized up for the last bit. But we'll check it out and we'll bring it to you again. Where are we? We're at 9:22. And it is the 28th of July in the year 2022. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewes. The White Hart Hotel is a very famous hotel, a very famous watering hole. Is built in the 15th century, or actually I think the 16th century, in the 1500s. And it was particularly famous because it was the meeting place of the Headstrong Club. The Headstrong Club was a meeting of intellectuals, if you like, people with all sorts of different ideas on how the world should be run. And Tom Paine was amongst the leaders of that club. And he here developed his famous theses on the rights of man, which took him to the Americas and to persuading the colonists that they should actually shuck off the yoke of England and King William III, King George III, and go their own way, which they did. And Bill Bryson, the noted historian, says that it was Tom Paine who coined the phrase "the United States." And indeed, I can well believe it, because even though it is said that he wasn't a very likable man, he was a very, very clever man. Boy, was he clever, without any formal education. And I'm a great fan of Tom Paine's and what he achieved in a relatively short life. But he certainly got the revolutionaries stirred up enough to declare a war of independence. And there is a plaque on the hotel here that says that it was the cradle of American independence. And indeed it was, because this is where, if you look around, the same rafters were over Tom Paine's head as are over mine right now. And those rafters have seen an awful lot in this hotel. But probably nothing quite as earth-shattering as Tom Paine and his rights of man. And in the so-called sheriff's room upstairs, a famous meeting room, there is an original copy, if you understand that. Of course, not the original worth millions, but an original copy of the Declaration of Independence hanging on the wall. And there is Tom Paine's signature on it, along with the other people who are rather better known, strangely enough. But Tom Paine was one of the initiators. and a man respected by his peers, until he decided to embark upon anti-religious views, and the Americans, being very, very religious as a nation, and still are in many respects, could tolerate that no longer, and to all intents and purposes, they dumped him. Mind you, he was some pup. He turned up on the Council of Nine in France to steer the French Revolution, and spent some time in jail at the behest of Robespierre, and only escaped with his head because of a jailer's mistake in putting a chalk cross on his door, putting it on the inside instead of the outside. And so he wasn't collected and didn't go to the guillotine. But he scared the hell out of the establishment here because the French Revolution was just a bit too close to home. And with him being involved in it, Tom was not welcome. And to all intents and purposes, although I believe that the charge doesn't read treason, he was charged with treason. And his friends persuaded him that he would never, ever beat the charge because it was brought by the pillars of the establishment, including the king at the time, and that he would actually be hung, drawn, and quartered, which was a particularly nasty way to die. And so he was persuaded to go back to the United States, where he ended his days. But certainly some pup, as they would say, some pup. And if you really want a little bit of light reading to find out people who forged the way that this world has gone ever since, is read a little bit about Tom Paine. Just a little bit about Tom Paine. Okay, where are we now? It's 9:28. Wow. Shall we take a pause and come back, or shall we just keep going? I am a mind to actually keep going. And as I said to you, we've got some interesting back files that I would like to show you. There's well, why don't we just go with the first hour episode, History of the Grange, but in fact it's a lot more than that. We won't certainly spend an hour, but we'll take a little bit of a clip, I think, from it.
Lewes is a very historic city. It has more history on its main street than many other towns in the UK. We tell some of it. Welcome to Mirador. The old man once told me that when he tried to make an omelette, he used over 24 eggs before he hit the target. Nonetheless, over half of it ended up on the floor. No surprise there. Here is his expertise as he joins me for Break an Egg.
Hello. At last I've caught you asleep.
Oh, not
Yeah,
you
you're
again.
always trying to show me asleep, aren't you? Hey?
Aww, it's too early. Go away.
Oh no, we've got works to do. We're taking Break an Egg from Grange Park this week, and it's a nice place to fall asleep.
And here
Hey.
I was thinking I could get away from you.
Get away from me.
You can have this back.
Oh,
You
right.
need it more than me.
Well,
I must say that I got a haircut coming tomorrow, but for the moment I've got to cover up, I think.
Correct.
You just don't want anybody to see that I'm bald and grey, and all because of you.
I think people can see that anyway, don't you worry. They've known you long enough in this town.
You know, one of the interesting things about this park is, you've got two young children. It's a great park for coming and having picnics and things.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's quiet. It's large enough for them to run around. Very good.
And that's how you see it.
Yes.
Well, believe it or not, particularly at the time of the conquest, this was underwater.
Wow.
This was an archipelago of small islands, and the priory, which was founded in 1079 by the first Lord of Lewis, William de Varenne, and his wife Gundrada, is that the deed mentions that they are granted, the priory is granted an island over there.
Are you sure it was 1079?
Well, some people debate it, but it's certainly 1079 or 1081. I remember it well.
Clearly not that well. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that year.
Just over here, there's a river called the Winterbourne.
Indeed.
Well, I mean, now you would call it a stream, right? Not much going on there
No.
until winter. Then it rages a bit.
Yes.
But that river was big enough for barges to travel up to the priory and unload various goods and so on.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I would think that the slate from this the cladding, which used to be on the priory from this mansion here, probably came up that way as well. So I think it's Welsh, or it certainly didn't come from locally, but obviously man-made developments have dried it out, and so it's now nice, flat, calm lawns, as you say, nice for children to play on, with just a little trickle of the old river running through it.
Indeed. Are there any pictures?
Not from 1079, I don't think.
No?
No.
Oh dear.
No, I can remember distinctly when the camera was first invented, and it wasn't 1079. It was a little later than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You love the camera, don't you?
No?
No? Oh, come on, you're always preening, right?
Me?
Takes you 15 minutes to get that lipstick on.
2 seconds, actually. You never pay attention.
Never pay attention. I'm supposed to pay attention. The other interesting thing is that now if you go up onto the high street in what's called the bottleneck, where the road comes together like that, is the old grammar school, which has been there since about 1520, as I recall. And it originated as a lady paid some money for the first grammar school just over there, just over the wall there. But it consistently flooded because this was very much a water park, if you like. It wasn't a water park, it was part of the grounds of the Grange, of course. But it because it flooded, they eventually moved it up to where it is today. But it's been up there for quite a long time. And so down here was a very interesting part of Lewes. And some people say the little area of Southover is over there. Now, why has it got its own church? Why has it got its own pub? Why has it got its own high street? And the reason being is getting from there to Lewes proper wasn't as easy as it is today. Just a short walk from pub to pub.
Yeah, your favourite topic.
Aha. Yeah. What do you mean?
I bet the reason why we're here today is because there's a pub just around 50 yards from here.
I bet you can smell it, can't you? I can.
Of course you do.
Yeah, well actually, let's see how we're going. Oh, it's not, you know,
I think that they're probably open. So I think it's time that we went for a pint. Huh?
Huh? What do you mean?
Sort of asking your permission.
No matter what I say, it doesn't matter. You'll be there anyway if you really want to.
Will I?
Well, I guess. I'll just have to do all the work by myself. Again.
That'd be good.
Will I get a Bloody Mary?
If you pay.
Oh, for goodness sake. Is it payday yet?
Well, I never have any money, as you know. I'm a bit like royalty.
Oh, did you say royalty?
Hey, I did indeed.
Oh, okay. That's all right. No comment.
But Annie, you come from outside Lewes. I've been here for 30 years. But some of the things that you actually find here from a historical point of view, do you find that you enjoy them? Do your family enjoy them? Do your children enjoy them? Your mother lives with you. Does she enjoy them?
Yes, indeed. I love the history of this town. It's a lot of culture. And a lot of restaurants.
Ah! Well now, one last thing before we go, because we will be talking food and drink on this programme throughout the week. But the Priory actually owned some of the pubs and the inns in the centre of town, right where the White Hart Hotel is now. And they were known throughout England for being excellent for food, excellent for wines, and that was the monks that owned them. So there's a lot to be said for the churchy type pubs and so on.
Indeed.
You like churchy type pubs?
I just like pubs.
I was going to invite you to come to church with me.
Church?
Okay.
With you?
Okay, I'll invite you just to the pub.
I'm
Well-
still not entirely sure how they let you in the church every Sunday. Mind you, it is not every Sunday. He's not that brave. He only goes twice a month.
Secrets. Anyway, if she'll get off my back long enough, we will go back to the studio and we will present hopefully a nice lively mix of programs throughout the day for you. And then we may come back here tomorrow morning, because it is a lovely place. We are expecting a heat wave. The sun is breaking through the clouds. It's all very pleasant, isn't it?
Indeed. At least it was until you turned up.
Go back to sleep.
Thank you. But is that you telling me you're going to leave now?
I may.
Please do. Goodbye.
Can't get anybody to work nowadays. Can't get the staff.
Well, that was Annie Verrill, a very talented broadcaster, now lost to the legal profession. A very talented young lady. But that was a little run through Priory Park. Our favourite, let's play the Potter's Wheel. Our favourite Potter's Wheel. Here we go. Now you saw my lips moving and no sound coming out because I keep on forgetting to turn the microphone back on after some of these clips that we show you. But I was saying that little repartee between myself and the lady there is a lady known as Annie Verrill, who has been lost to television because she has the ambition to become a top lawyer, and she opted for that over TV, a lost TV. Very talented young lady, but also it was a way of us showing just how historic that park was. And then I said we would just show, we use it as the potter's wheel, our potter's wheel, and I would show you what we were talking about. So that's what my lips were saying, even if they weren't getting things absolutely right. Right, well, we haven't heard from Jane in Scotland yet. Hopefully we will before long, and that she will come on and join us. Let's just review for a moment or two the newspaper front pages. Lots of gloom and lots of doom, I'm afraid, as is usual. But we start off with the Eye, where the UK general strike is threatened by the leader of the RMT union, Mick Lynch. Is that right? Yes, Mick Lynch, who called yesterday's strike. And he says that it'll be a general strike. Every union will pull out its members if she alters legislation to make life tougher for the unions. And that was a theme in the debate between she and Sunak. They both came out on the same theme. Yes, we very much want to take on the unions and to curb some of the power so they can't bring the country to ransom the way that they do. The last person to do that, last prime minister to do that, really was Margaret Thatcher, of course, and that really wasn't an upheaval and a completely different way of living and carrying on in the United Kingdom. But that is historic. This is today. And Lynch is girding his loins, ready for a fight with either Truss or Sunak, depending on who wins the battle. Incidentally, talking about a battle, as Germany beat France in the Women's Euro football finals last night, 2-1. So it's Germany versus England on is it Saturday or Sunday, but certainly on the weekend. And a little bird has told me that every last seat has been sold. This has been the best thing for women's football for a long, long time. And the success has led to renewed interest and actually renewed tinkling of bells, cash registers, as people go through the turnstiles to watch them play. And actually, they got, about 8 million people to watch the semis on television, so they're doing pretty well indeed. The Metro is points out that this is the driest June since 1911. The driest July rather since 1911, and that means that it's the driest in 110 years, I think. Yes, 110, 111 years, the driest July that we've had. And I have to say that if you are out there today, it is very pleasant again. There was a bit overcast on the high street, but I'm looking out through the window now just at the stretch in front of the courthouse, and the sun has broken through the clouds again, and it's looking very, very nice. There is a bit of a fresh breeze, which does nothing for people wearing a hat like mine. That breeze tends to lift it off the head and send it scurrying down the street, and me scurrying after it, trying hard to capture it. But nonetheless, a very, very pleasant sort of day. And the Daily Star is worried about the fact that we may have a water shortage, and their idea of how to stop a drought is grease is the word, and they say don't wash your hair, don't take a shower that lasts more than 5 minutes, and use the same dirty cup all day to drink your tea out of. I, on the other hand, went back to a campaign of many years ago, take a shower with a friend. I prefer that. There we are. That's the papers. There are one or two more. The Daily Express, normally a government-supporting paper. There are fears that energy bills will hit a shocking £3,850 a year. And in fact, the Daily Mirror puts it at a possibility of £500 a month. And that really would be awful. That's £6,000. As if this isn't bad enough. There we are. Energy bills, £3,850 a year, and that's on the stocks already. Yes, the Mirror, shocking. Energy bills could hit £500. The Financial Times it takes a wider view. One of the things that is hurting us and is likely to hurt us is that the Federal Reserve, the American central bank, has lifted its interest rates by a 0.75 of a percentage point, which is quite a significant rise. And it makes the cost of money much bigger, heavier. And the whole idea is to cool the economy, to slow people down from borrowing money. And that way you start to cap inflation. Not 100% sure, but nonetheless, they are trying. But this is the second time in a month, which shows, the second month in a row. So it just shows how concerned the central banks are and the authorities over the issue of inflation, which can, of course, be crippling, absolutely crippling. The Daily Mail, victory for free speech and women. It highlights the case of a legal barrister, Alison Bailey, who was sacked because she expressed her personal opinion that biological sex can't be changed. And she was sacked for that view. And the Industrial Tribunal has upheld her right to say such things. And I think rightly so. Whoever is in charge of those chambers should be shot. It's not a question of whether you agree or not agree with her. What the important point is that you actually have the right to express your view and not fall into the trap that the wokes set, and that is that they have their own point of view and get quite threatening if you decide that you don't agree with it. That is frightening. That is very frightening, because freedom of speech is the basis of our society, that and the rule of law. Anyway, that was the Daily Mail's headline. The Times, talk to our enemies or run the risk of nuclear war. And a security advisor has warned that we are in danger of triggering a nuclear war, because with all the domestic stuff and all the Ukraine stuff and so on, what we've been doing is quietly cutting off the backroom chat rooms, if you like, between governments. And we're not talking to China, and we're not talking to Russia. And we did traditionally talk through these unseen and unknown means, which kept a cap on the use of nuclear arms. And the Times says that those avenues have been cut off, and as a result, the sort of diplomatic carry-on that stopped people from pushing the trigger, pushing the button, have gone. The Daily Telegraph, accidental nuclear war with China is a growing risk. More or less the same story. The Sun, which doesn't want to, it wants to pretend that there is nothing wrong. And it goes on with the
love life of the new Chelsea boss, Tuchel, as if I cared one way or the other, and if many of us do. But then again, that's the sun, isn't it? It's become a strange force in the newspaper world. So there we are. That's what's going down on the front pages of the newspapers. The weather is going to hit 23, 24 degrees today, a fresh breeze, some cloud cover. It's not going to stay totally sunny. There'll be some cloud drifting across, but generally speaking, a pretty nice day, and no rain in sight. So that leaves us in a sort of chance to move forward. As I do hope that we're going to see. Are we going to see Jane? I hope so. She's full of life and very good fun. We had yesterday, we did an interview with Sarah Fitch-Hayes, who is coming back onto the team with her own view of art. And it's pretty damn good because she paints things like banana splits. And she also paints things like Marmite bottles and Coke bottles. But also in the chat yesterday, she showed how she's using Instagram to produce a different, what I think is a different type of art. All that in a program which will probably be shown a week tomorrow, as Sarah warms herself up and gets back on board. Just a reminder that there is the raft race on Sunday. We hope to bring you some pictures and live if we can. And we'll have to see how things go. But we have been in touch with the organisers. There's always a reluctance for some reason to come and talk about what they're doing, which is a pity because it is a vital part of Lewes life. And we'd like to know how it's going, what's happening. And certainly crowds turn up for it. And if they expect the usual standard. And the usual standard is that now the raft race is the center point of a regatta, a really terrific regatta that has all sorts of other things. Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. The staff at the White Hart are gearing up for a busy day. The bar is being replenished. The beer is being poured. Is it? Is the beer being poured?
Yeah, clean the pipes today.
Ah, right. Okay. Oh, yes, that is. Come and show us. This is.
When I get the red stuff.
Oh, wait. He won't show us the foam, right? He's creaming the stuff off the top. But this is a lovely thing about being in a hotel like this, because as it springs to life with its guests and the people working here and so on and so forth, it's like a documentary. And we're right in the middle of it. We're broadcasting from the bar. So we see guests, we see the staff, we see the whole day in a hotel unfolding. And here we are.
I'm joining the pipe. So this is the end of the beer.
Right. So,
I'll be back in 5 minutes with
the full one.
With the full one.
Now, never mind about taking a shower with a friend. Go to work on a pint. Good stuff. Good stuff. And this gentleman is the man who maintains the hotel and makes sure that all the light bulbs work and so on and so forth. A terrific friend to us. Make sure we've got the cables and the lights and so on and so forth. And the whole staff are like that. They are a terrific staff. In a time when pubs are struggling to get staff that can do the proper thing across the bar and make them feel like pubs, this hotel has got a long-serving staff, all of whom are fantastic.
it's worthwhile coming in here for a cup of coffee. Well, a pint of beer as well, if you like. Although, in theory, it's another 5 minutes before we can taste it. Right, okie dokie. Let's tweak a tail. Why not tweak a tail?
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Come here. Come back.
Well done, the energy companies. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, now I didn't get quite a chance to read it, but it seems that Jane is taken up with other things in Scotland and can't join us today. A great pity, because she is just a terrific lady, and she's ill today. Oh, what a place to be ill in Scotland! It must have been too much haggis. Oh dear me. Never mind. We'll there we go. We'll have to struggle through with just me. Well, I hope that some of the things that we're doing this morning are pleasing you. Let's see what else then we can dig up that might be fun. And who knows what we've got. First of all, it says intro to the model railways. Let's just take a look at it, shall we? Because the way that we did a couple of years ago, we did our holiday and tourism stuff via model railways. So I'd be quite interested to see what we've got here. There we go.
All three clubs convened for prototypical operating sessions, where trains are created and dispatched on schedule runs to deliver freight to various industries. They use digital control systems, and all three feature beautiful, realistic scenery.
Well, there we are. That's how we would do our tourist programs, holiday programs, and featuring various countries and the delights they had to offer. It's not a bad way of doing it. We might go back to that. Once again, we are a bit short on, like everybody else, on manpower. So we have to sometimes sometimes we have to put up with let's see, we have to put up with the things that are not so great. We can't get around to absolutely everything, but we are on the way back, and this very different type of broadcast where we are in the middle of a hotel that from time to time we find very interesting guests, and particularly when there's more than one of us to chase the guests through the corridors. I can't do this and chase the guests. So what we'll do now, I think, is shall we? Yeah, why not? Let's first of all, shall we see what videos that we've got that we've been playing in some ways. Let's see, what were we doing on June the 6th? Well, here, I think it's time for us to replay this one because it comes from our friends in battle.
My name is Alan Judd, and I am here to introduce you to the historic market town of Battle. Battle, so named because it was the site of the famous Battle of Hastings in 1066, although it's not in Hastings. We are in fact 6 miles inland from Hastings. And what better place to start to explain the history of what happened here and why than the Battle Museum of Local History, where first of all we'll look at some of the weaponry that was used. Now, one of the most interesting exhibits found at the site of the battle is this axe head, verified as the kind of axe head that was certainly in use at the time. And this is what the axe head would have looked like at the time. This replica was made with the exact same techniques as would have been used in 1066. And this axe would have been used to kill men, not only men, I'm afraid horses too. The battle and the events leading up to it are very well known, and they are portrayed in the famous Bayeux tapestry, a copy of part of which is on display in the museum. The Bayeux tapestry is not the only tapestry that tells us about the Battle of Hastings and indeed its aftermath. A much more modern one was produced recently by local volunteers and visitors to the town. That tells us about the foundation of the town from after the battle in October 1066 to the founding of St Mary's Church in 1115. This is Natasha Williams, English Heritage's property manager for properties in Sussex. She's going to tell us how the battle came to be fought here and what happened. Natasha, why here? Why was the battle fought here? Why do we have the abbey here?
The story starts with Edward the Confessor, who was king at the start of 1066. He died in January and he didn't have an heir, so it left a vacuum for the Kingdom of England. Multiple contenders who wanted the throne. This went on for pretty much the whole year and then culminated in October with the Battle of Hastings. This is what we term as the battlefield now. Now you've got to remember, at the time there were no buildings here. The landscape has changed a lot and it would have been over this whole area. The daffodils would not have been here. It wouldn't have been this bright sunny day, as obviously it was in October. So the landscape will have changed quite dramatically.
So can you tell us exactly what happened and where?
So we're now standing on what is known as Senlac Hill. This is the site of the battle, and as you can see, the slope here is very important to what happened. You can see a little bit of a slope now, but you just need to imagine it went a lot further up because they levelled off the hilltop when they built the abbey. So this is the spot that Harold chose to stand against William. William was coming from the coast, and Harold knew that he would be making his way to London. So he picked out this hillside because it was the perfect place to defend, and William had to come past it. He effectively surprised William because William didn't expect Harold to be here quite this quickly. So at the top of the hill, Harold formed his shield wall, and all he had to do was hold that shield wall until William arrived and the battle continued.
Can you tell us a little more about the shield wall, what exactly it was and how it happened?
The Saxon shield wall was a traditional Saxon tactic for warfare. They'd used it numerous times before and it was generally very successful. They would pick their battleground, so top of the hilltop, the Saxon army would have spread out probably about a mile long, all standing with their shields in front of them, and they formed a very formidable defence. All they had to do was stay at the top of that hill. William was at the bottom. His challenge was making his way up the hill, bearing in mind they had all their armour on, they were carrying extremely heavy weapons. It was enough of a feat just to make it to the top, let alone try and fight anyone with that wall in front of you.
Natasha, can you describe to us what happened that day in October 1066 on this spot?
You have to use your imagination. So 14th of October 1066, you had Harold's Saxon army at the top of the hill and you had the Norman army at the bottom. Saxons with their shield wall, the Normans raring to go to come up, but it was a bit of a standstill. Etiquette of battle, who would go first? Now, one of William's jesters, a gentleman named Taillefer, rode his horse in the middle of the two lines, shouting songs, mocking the Saxons, a bit of warfare cries beforehand, and one of the Saxon army archers got a bit excited and shot him, which was effectively the start of the battle. The Normans rushed forwards. All the Saxons had to do was stand firm with their shield wall, and the Normans rushed up the hill but couldn't get anywhere. And this happened a couple of times before William realised they had to change their tactics. He came up with a plan. He got a couple of his troops to rush forwards, but then retreat, acting fearful. He did this a couple of times until the Saxons got excited. They thought that they were winning, they'd made a breakthrough. The Norman army was retreating, and they followed them down the hill, effectively breaking the shield wall. And this was the turning point for William. He was able to now come round the back of them and attack them from multiple sides. Once the shield wall had been broken, the Norman army were more powerful, they had more improved weaponry, and they hadn't just fought a battle up in York like the Saxons had. So it was only a matter of time before the battle was decided.
We can say then that it all ended here. Harold was killed it would have been, we'd have been surrounded by blood and gore and bodies and goodness knows what else at this spot.
Yes, well, should we go have a look? This is said to be the spot where Harold was killed. The high altar of the abbey was placed here specifically to commemorate that. Now, when he was killed, his body was so badly mutilated that they had to bring in his wife to identify it later on. And William, he was very religious, so he wanted to build something on the site to give penance to all the blood that had been shed. Hence the reason that this Benedictine monastery was built on this very site.
And so the town of Battle grew up around the abbey, around this.
Yes. Yeah, where the Benedictine monks couldn't sustain themselves, they needed craftspeople, skilled labourers to come and help them establish a community here, which is how the town grew up around the abbey. And they even built the church that you see in the background here as a place for the townspeople to worship.
And we'll be going into that church in a later instalment.
Every year, on the weekend nearest the 14th of October, English Heritage holds a reenactment of the Battle of Hastings here at site. It involves reenactors from not only England but Europe as well. We get people coming over from Normandy, and it attracts thousands of visitors from all over the world who come specifically to see the reenactment. It's a great event. Not only is there the battle, there's weaponry demonstrations and living history, so you get to see people as they were in 1066.
Yeah, we've got me back. I've even remembered now to unmute the microphone. In other words, push the microphone on so you can hear what I've got to say. But I always find that little expose of battle, the Battle of Battle as opposed to the Battle of Hastings, most illuminating and very interesting the way that in fact the course of history changed for England and ultimately Britain, and all on a cabbage patch crop with a line of Saxons, a line of Normans, basically, and the Normans outdid the Saxons. So there you are. It's happened. Very quick run through the headlines, the newspaper front pages. The UK general strike threatens if Truss takes on the unions. Mick Lynch of the RMT, the rail union, says it'll be open warfare against the government, and he'll call it a general strike right across the country if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister and implements some of her reforms of union law that she's threatening. Actually, Rishi Sunak is threatening the same sort of thing. So I don't think it matters. We can see a clash between government and unions. The Guardian and the unions issue a general strike threat as the rail crisis grows. Metro, the driest July since 1911, and causing some concern, as usual, about this, whether we can speak in the law. The Star, it takes it up in its own inimitable. Greece is the word, it says. And what it's suggesting is that the best way to stop the hot weather leading to a drought is to cut your showers short, stop washing your hair, and reusing your teacup throughout the day. And it says Greece is the word. I personally, as I said earlier in this program, loved the little warning some years ago, where the slogan was, take a shower in the front. The Daily Express fears that energy bills will hit a shocking 3,855 a year. And that energy is being a problem. The Mirror, the cost of living crisis, shocking. It says every bill, energy bills could hit in the winter £500 for 1 month, which is pretty awful. It really is. The Financial Times takes a look at some of the root causes of our ills and evils, and says that the Federal Reserve, that is the American Central Bank, has lifted its rates by 0.75 of a percentage point. That's quite a hefty rise. They normally go up in 0.25 bits, but this is 3 of those altogether. And it shows the concern that the central banks now have about inflation and how to cap it. But of course, the trouble is the way that they do cap it, and the reason they put up interest rates, is to make the borrowing of money more expensive, and that's supposed to slow everything down. But in this particular case, we have to worry that it's actually going to add to an inflationary spiral in which energy prices are then kicking up the cost of living. And it's possible that this cut in interest rates could do the same thing. It really could, not the cut in interest rates, a hike in interest rates. And it makes life much more uneasy, if you like. Victory for free speech, says the Daily Mail, and for women, is a barrister, Alison Bailey, went to an industrial tribunal because she was sacked for saying she believed that biological sex can't be changed, and they sacked her. And she's won her case, and just as well, because otherwise the wokes would have had a field day with their telling us how we can think and how we can speak. And that law firm should hang its head in shame. I don't know which one it was. Garden Court, legal chambers. They are. Avoid them like the plague. The Times, talk to our enemies or run the risk of nuclear war. And one of our security advisors, senior security advisor, Sir Stephen Lovegrove, says that we're at the risk of stumbling into a nuclear conflict with China or Russia because some of the traditional ways of that we never hear about of diplomats and security officials talking to each other have been closed because of the war in Ukraine, and to some extent because of the intransigence of the United States over the development of China. And they say that it therefore makes it very dangerous that all sorts of things could happen on a misunderstanding. And the Daily Telegraph takes that up as well. Accidental nuclear war with China is a growing risk. So those are things that you really do have to worry about. You have to worry about indeed. The Sun, Tuchel taps up a Brazilian. I suppose it's the term touching up is usually used about approaching an illegal approach to a player in a football club. But in this particular instance, it's Tuchel, who is apparently the boss of Chelsea, has got a new mistress or a new lover or a new girlfriend or whatever. So those are the headlines. It is now 20 past 10. Shall we go and see what we may have in terms of something else to show you that you haven't seen before, and that might bring a little smile to your lips? It is possible that we might just have that. Let's see. Well, here is a Mirador, quite a long program, but we'll show you just bits of it. And it is hosted again or introduced by the lovely Annie Verrill, who has now gone on to a great career in the law, while she leaves us staggering with TV. But she was very good, very talented lady. Here she is with what we will take a look at, and I haven't a clue what it is.
Leaders are sometimes accused of being asleep at the switch, lax with the regulations, or even fail to look after the vulnerable. The old man has deep concerns about how the issue of mental health is being handled by them.
This morning I woke up to find out that I was an assassin. This series is about Tanya, who has mental health problems, and to some extent about me, who's been an unpaid, an untried, and untrained minder, carer for almost 4 years. I've learned on the job, and it is not easy, because abuse comes 3 or 4 times a day, and often 7 days a week. You learn to put up with it if you've got any sort of broad shoulders, which hopefully I have, but it's not pleasant. And it's the sort of thing that you don't really want to happen to anybody other than yourself. But it does. There are dozens of people in our community here, let alone around the country and around the world, who suffer the same thing on a day-to-day basis. But one of the things that I find difficult to understand is, and I mentioned this in the last episode, this lady, Tanya, was supposed to have a nurse. And she was supposed to have a social worker. And the court asked, the tribunal asked, if temporarily she could stay with me so that she could be released from a horrific containment. You know, well, let's face it. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. It was a cuckoo's nest in Eastbourne. What was one to say? So I agreed to the temporary measure. That tribunal took place about 2 years ago. The nurse introduced herself and was never seen again. The social worker came once and probably declared that he didn't like this work and he was quitting, you know, sell cars or something. So that was the backup. That was the backup that the state gave after the tribunal had ordered this lady to be released. They ruled that, yes, she had mental health problems, but not severe enough to be contained in an institution. And I'm glad that that's the way the court ruled. It's the only sensible ruling that I've ever had on this matter. Anyway, here I am. 2 years down the line, still a carer, still unpaid, still no support whatsoever from the people that I would have expected should support, if not me, Tanya. And this isn't a plea for me. This is a plea for Tanya and for all those people who are suffering mental health. They go through the same experiences. Last couple of days, I've spoken to a former social worker, pretty good at her job. And she explained that by me agreeing to help this lady for a couple of weeks until the council found her a place to live, meant that she actually slipped off their radar. There isn't anybody looking to try and help her now. There isn't a file. There isn't another social worker. She has simply become a disappeared. And I don't exist. And I, according to this lady, will be held culpable by the state for having given her a roof over her head in the first place, because that stopped anybody finding her a place to live. If that's true, that is the most outrageous thing that I've heard in a long time, and far worse than some of the things that I've witnessed myself. What does the state think that the individual should do? Yes, of course we should try and do our best. But our best is only our best. We're not getting any part of the £12.2 billion spent on mental health in the last budget to be declared. We need the help of professionals. And is it there? No, not at any level. Not from the chief executive of the local council, the MP, or I am told that there is somebody in housing. No, none. None whatsoever. The only attempt that I've witnessed to help this lady is I got a call during lockdown, or just before lockdown, to ask if she was with me, excuse me, if I got hiccups this morning. It's not because I've been drinking at breakfast time. The answer to this gentleman was, she is here. And I said, I've been waiting to hear from you chaps because, you know, the follow-up of care. No, he said, I'm only just making sure that she's off our homeless list. Perhaps somebody else will call you, perhaps. Well, that was the start of lockdown, so what's that, 8 months ago? And that's the only thing in 4 years that have been ever helpful in any way. This lady becomes one of the dispossessed. Nobody wants to know. Somewhere she's got a head over a roof over her head, and somewhere there's somebody as daft as Hayes to be looking after her. And how do we avoid any complaints from Hayes or any a claim for even a modest amount of assistance? We lose the bloody file. That's what we do, because that's our standard way of dealing with things, is we lose the file. It appears from the information I was given in this last discussion that social workers have about 30 cases, not necessarily to do with mental health, but they have 30 or so cases which they can barely master, they can barely look after as it is. £12.2 billion. Oh, where on earth is that going? Well, it sure as ain't going into mental health down here. That's for sure. And as for training, it's duck and dive from the authorities. They're not a bit interested in helping. They're civil servants, you see. All they want is promotion and 75 holidays a year. And as for the MPs, my God, we've got to work in lockdown, so first of all, let's give ourselves £10,000 and then let's give ourselves 3,000 more, because it's far worse for us to work at home during the pandemic than it is for anybody else. Oh, yes, indeed. £12.2 billion. Oh, perhaps that's where it's going. But it sure as hell isn't going towards helping mental health, or at least nothing obvious. And as usual, they manage to create rules that are in their favour. Okay, you say, oh, why don't you march down and confront these people? Well, I've tried that. Oh, it's the Data Protection Act. Actually. The Data Protection Act prevents them, unless I'm an actually relative, from asking any questions or being given any information. The fact is, the relatives don't want to know. Yes, she does have some in the southeast, but the relatives don't want to know. I'm the only thing standing between her and ending up on the streets. Oh, but we can't talk to you. Data Protection Act, you see. The Data Protection Act. Oh, by the way, I got a letter from you saying that you had looked into my bank account. Oh, yes. Well, we have a clause in which we can actually bypass the Data Protection Act. Well, why don't you use that on behalf of the mental health? Oh, we couldn't do that. Oh, certainly not. It's only when it comes to dinging you for monies which we figure you owed with the nastiest letters that you could ever imagine. Oh, well, the computer actually does those letters. Yes, somebody really should make them better. Ha! Well, tell the damn computer people. Computers they only send what's put into them. You know, the whole system is weighted against us helping anybody in our society. And then we have the politicians saying, society doesn't care anymore, isn't it dreadful? Well, it is, because you're steering us in that direction. And it's impacting on people like Tanya. The other morning, she didn't rant at me. She was crying. It was the day that she was supposed to get a letter from the daughter that was taken away from her 8 years ago. And that could bear some investigation. But no, we can't do that. Oh, the courts have ruled. The system is just weighted against everybody except the establishment. And it's time that they started to look at these things. I may be totally unjustified in some of the things I'm saying, but nobody bothers to look. Nobody will answer anything. Everybody finds an excuse not to, and that annoys the hell out of me, because we are supposed to be living in a free society, and we appear not to be, at least not when it makes the establishment, our leaders, uncomfortable. Then it's not so free, after all. I'll talk about Tanya crying, that she didn't get the letter that she's supposed to, and that there's nobody to deal with it, because they've all moved on. That's where probably the £12.2 billion goes. They moved on to better pay, better conditions, and to hell with the rest. Tanya's story, it's so intertwined with incompetence, self-interest, and who knows, £12.2 billion. Where's that gone? Okay, days.
Just want to let you hear the music for this book because it isn't applicable anymore.
He's an icon in American journalism.
Here we go.
No punches pulled there. Here's Mark Landsman, all the way from Florida.
Have you heard? Let me spell that. H-E-R-D. Have you heard? You know, President Trump is very active again on the campaign trail, holding rallies, attracting these big crowds, many without masks, challenging the wicked pandemic. It's like nothing at all is wrong, while so much of it really is. This high noon with science occurs at a time when the deadly virus is really still very active and just refuses to disappear as promised. The Trump strategy is saying, to hell with this threat, just to hell with it. We should all resume a normal life. The herd plan that suggests catch it, get over it, and all will be well again. The people with stethoscopes and microscopes believe this will bolster the death rate, suggesting that masks, distancing, caution is the best line of defense until a vaccine is available, and that's not tomorrow. Sadly, our president is very willing to risk many lives in pursuit of his own re-election. Voters will decide the road ahead in just a matter of weeks now, hopefully putting an end to the madness we experience that affects and infects America, its health, safety, its values, its respect. I'm Mark Lansman.
When you've missed the train, don't despair. Have a nice cup of coffee. And perhaps a mince pie. At the Runaway on Lewes Station. After that, why worry about the next train? The Runaway on Lewes Station. Relaxation beyond compare.
Do you like model railways? Do you like real trains? Or perhaps a little bit of travel? We show a little bit of everything in our tourist program. Next up, the lovely Claudine. She just loves autumn. It's her favourite season. And if you've seen her previous feasts, you will know that she likes to just act like a child. Now and again. Just to go out there and kick about in lovely, crispy leaves. The next story is all about Halloween. What's the origin? Why do we celebrate it? She gives us a very interesting little history. And also answers the question, just because it comes from America, does it mean we shouldn't celebrate it? Claudine Harper is here to tell you the story.
Hello, you've caught me. I've been unpacking my Halloween decorations. It's late October, therefore I need to get ready for Halloween, which of course falls on the 31st of October. Every year, without a doubt, even in these uncertain times. But Halloween always seems to get bad rap. You've either got it being said that it's unchristian,
Trying to steal my candy, will ya?
or it's an American holiday.
I'll bite your fingers off.
It always irritates me because not only is it inaccurate, but it shows a lack of awareness. Obviously you could say it's commercial.
No candy for you.
Most holidays are. Just look at Christmas. But the fact that it is so mainstream in America has actually come from the fact that long time ago the Scots and the Irish immigrated to America, and actually Halloween has come from their traditions. Marking the end of the summer and the beginning of the darker time of the year, the old Irish had a name, Samhain, which meant summer's end. As they tended to believe a long time ago, with the darkening of the year coming, they believed that fairies and spirits would reappear at that time of year. Now, people a long time ago had to protect their livestock, and one of the things they felt they had to do was to help the undead or the spirits by offering food, leaving out food for them, just in case they did something to the livestock. But they weren't always feared. They were perhaps descendants of certain gods or special spirits, and so the food that they left out were actually gifts. And it was also believed that the souls of the dead, your relatives and your family, would revisit around that time of year, and you might at dinner time lay a place at the dinner table for them, just in case they popped by. Also, there is the tradition that people would go around guising or mummying, which is just dressing up. People would go from house to house and they would recite songs in exchange for food. And if you didn't give them some food, you may have some misfortune on your house. If you gave them food, then you probably would have good luck for the rest of the year until the next time. The name Halloween actually has come from All Hallows Eve, and you can still call it that today. It's just been shortened over time. So what was All Hallows Evening has eventually become Ean. And then this takes me to the Christian part of it. As far back as the 15th century, it's been linked to a Christian observance or festival. The Christians would bake cakes and have them given to children who would knock on the door on Halloween, and they would give them the cakes in exchange for the children saying prayers for the dead. There's so many traditions linked to Halloween that have just changed over time. I mean, you're talking about centuries. So the dressing up has become part of not being recognised by the dead. So if you dress up in an evil or crazy, gross costume, then perhaps they'll just overlook you. They won't do anything to you. But then there's also the idea that if you do dress up as them, they'll recognise fellow person that looks like them and help them on their way back to heaven. And then there's the lanterns, the jack-o'-lanterns. You walk around the streets and it's supposed to give the dead the path back to heaven. The idea that you want to help your dead relatives get back to heaven, or that you're remembering the dead, but also to appreciate death in terms of being grateful for being alive. And then there's the best part, I find, which is using humour and ridicule to diminish the power of death, the idea of death, the fear of death. And even for kids, this is a great thing to do, to just look it straight in the face, look at something a bit scary, realise it's not going to do anything to you, and actually it's part of life. Probably because the Scots and the Irish are so patriotic that the festival, the holiday, thrived in America, and that's where it became quite mainstream. So when people say it's so American, yeah, it is, but it actually is something that anyone can celebrate and enjoy and have fun with. It doesn't matter your religion, your culture, or your age. To see your fellow neighbours going around dressed up in silly outfits for one day, to just be a little bit evil from your lovely innocent self that you are for the rest of the year, is actually really good fun. And you just let yourself go. But also, my memories of Halloween are being able to go around the neighbourhood and see my neighbours and see other people going around with their kids and enjoying themselves and having fun, laughing at each other's costumes, and the kids being so into it because they get to dress up into anything they want, and at the end of it they get sweets. I mean, what more could you ask for? The thing is, these days I think it's actually becoming more popular, and that's a great thing because we don't really know our neighbours very well. In fact, Halloween gives us a chance to get out of the house on a cold, dark autumn night and to see the homes dressed up with the jack-o'-lanterns carved in really clever designs. All of this adds a sense of community, which we are always lacking these days. Then there's the great things about Halloween, like the toffee or chocolate apples. The apples that are so in abundance around because of the harvest. There's so many of them that they would just cover them in chocolate or toffee and give away to children. And to me, it's the best way to have an apple now. This curious, ghostly idea makes you feel like a kid again and just feeds into your curiosity that you don't know what's out there. As much as we love science and we love facts and knowledge, we still have to admit we really don't know what's in the unseen world. So let's not dismiss a culture or tradition just because it's American or it's commercial. Let's actually figure out what it is all about and see whether you want to celebrate it or not once you've found out. But to me, there's nothing really to be negative about Halloween unless you really don't want to be disturbed at night and you're living on your own. I can understand that. But if you're a family, if you're a young adult who just wants to have a bit of fun, then it's the perfect opportunity to not be yourself for one night and be something truly ghastly.
So, what did you think? Lovely little piece, isn't it? I, for one, was very interested in that history. It's very good to know. Join Claudine next time for our next piece.
Well, there we are. It's a long time since I've seen that, and I found that very interesting. I was sitting here enthralled, and it is now 10:58 on the morning of the 28th of July, 2022. And this is Mirador Television broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, and trying to bring you a mixture of news, views, entertainment, bits and pieces. Just very quickly going through the headlines again. The I newspaper says a UK general strike threat if Truss takes on the unions. Mick Lynch has said, don't play with me, Miss Truss, because she has said that reform of the unions will be her manifesto if she becomes Prime Minister. The Guardian follows on with that theme. Unions issue a general strike threat as the rail crisis grows. So if that fight takes place, Lynch is going to call a general strike across the country. The Metro, the driest July since 1911. And that is, we have had this really fast, fantastic run of clear weather, nice weather. So we're drying up with water a little bit. And it's beginning to tell. The Star, my lovely Daily Star. Grease is the word because it says, stop washing your hair, reuse your teacups, and cut your shower time. And grease is the answer. The Daily Express changes tone. Fears of energy bills will hit shocking £3,850 a year if we keep on the way that we are. The Mirror, also shocking. It goes further and says it could be £500 for 1 month next winter if we're not careful. The Financial Times it reports that the Federal Reserve in the United States, the United States Central Bank, has lifted its interest rates by 75 points. In other words, 3/4 of a percentage point. And that is a substantial lift. And it's the second month in a row that it's done it. And that is to try and cap inflation. But by the same token, it also can stoke prices, making them out of the reach of the average person. The Daily Mail is a victory for free speech and women. It reports on a barrister who has said that she believed biological sex cannot be changed and was sacked for it. So she went to an industrial tribunal, and the tribunal has upheld her. You should be able to say things like that in this day and age. Although there are many woke organizations that decide otherwise, but to hell with them. The Times, talk to our enemies or run a risk of nuclear war. And they report on a senior civil servant who says that some of the lines of communication between China, Russia, and ourselves and the United States have been blocked because of the various things that have been happening. And as a consequence, the finger on the trigger or the button gets closer, and we are in a more dangerous situation. The Sun ends up by being absolutely nothing. Its front page is that the boss of Chelsea, Tuchel, I think, has got a new girlfriend. What a way to end. The weather is going to be rather nice. It's going to be 23, 24 degrees, some cloud, but mostly sunshine. A little bit of a gentle breeze. Mind you, the gentle breeze sometimes lifts my hat off, so do be careful. And other than that, it is now 2 minutes past 11. I said on the 28th day of July in 2022, and we are not really expecting anybody else in guest terms. So I think what we'll do is we will say toodle pip. I hope you've enjoyed what we've had to offer this morning. Good to see some old favourites, Annie Verrill, Claudine Harper, and other people who have been associated with Mirador along its a very uneven, very dicey, sometimes a very tenuous path to where it is today. But we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still kicking to try hard to establish the principle of small-scale television. And it is becoming increasingly important because the experts say that television as we know it in terms of the major broadcasters will have disappeared in a short 10-year period, and that there will be a whole different way of viewing, but that small-scale television will have increasing importance for relating to the community. So we're glad that we're here. We hope that we can hang on. We hope that we can help develop. I personally have a vision, and I really would invite people in Lewes and around about, and for that matter, anywhere in the world, to join that vision, to join the vision of eventually a network of small-scale, really small-scale television. We're not talking about the silly efforts that the government has made over the years, disasters they've been. We're talking about really small-scale television. It can and does work. It can and does have fun. It can and does bring information. We don't know whether we've got the style right, whether we've got the format right. What we do know is that we're gathering audiences on a day-to-day basis, and that we bring all sorts of different things in a very casual way. And we invite people to walk in on our programs whenever they feel like it. Let's hope that we've got it right. Let's hope you think we've got it right. Anyway, join the vision. Join Mirador. Help us break the mold. Help us face the future. And help us, in fact, become leaders in that future. What a feather in Lewis's cap if we can do that. Join us. Thanks for being with us this morning. I would hope that what we do is we will see you tomorrow catch up with all sorts of things on a Friday. We have Melissa Conti in from New York tomorrow, and lots of things to talk about. We would hope that what we can do is let's see. If we well, here we go. I can't find the bit and piece for us to say goodbye. How silly! But there we go. We can say goodbye in 1,000 different other ways, and we will do. We'll cancel that. Let's use an old one. Remember this one. Till tomorrow, toodle pip.